He's listening to me.
I hope so.
He is. God, you're a good soul. God bless you.
God bless you.
Welcome to the Performance Anxiety Podcast on the Pantheon Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mark. And Pierce Turner and I begin this episode by talking about castles, and we end it discussing Patsy Cline and Roy Orbison. But in between, we do manage to touch on his career. He's been playing music since he was a kid in Ireland in the 60s. He couldn't help it. It was all around him. His mom had her own band, and the family had their own music store. And as a 14-year-old kid, he was in charge of inventory. He was even in a 60s Irish version of a boy band. But he wanted to start writing his own music, so he struck out on his own, which led him and a bandmate to fly to New York City with no plan. Not even a place to stay when they landed. His first recordings in America almost ruined his career by attracting a bunch of weird Aleister Crowley fanatics. But he started writing music for modern dance and working with Philip Glass before starting his true solo career. His sound has shifted over the decades, including ditching the traditional band format and working only with string quartets for a while. His new album features David Bowie guitarist Jerry Leonard and rhythm section of Tony Shanahan from Patti Smith and Beck, and Yuval Lyon from David Byrne, and Philip Glass returns. It's called Terrible Good because that's exactly what it is. Check it out in the usual places. Check out Pierce's website, pierceturner.com, for more information. Follow us at Performance ANX on social media. Rate and review if you please. You can show support with a cup of coffee at ko-fi.com/performanceanxiety, or picking up a shower curtain or two at performanceanx.threadless.com. So grab a pint and enjoy Pierce Turner on Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network.
All right. That's a nice twist you got there at the end. Hello, this is Pierce Turner, and I'm promoting a new album actually called Terrible Good on Story Sound Records, which you can get anywhere you want. So this is Performance Anxiety, and it's been very, very anxious for me to be on here with Mark, but I've got through it somehow, and he says he's going to use the worst one of my introductions. So I'll say it again. I'm Pierce Turner, and I'm promoting a new album called Terrible Good, and this is Performance Anxiety. Hi, Mark. I'm Pierce.
Nice.
Can you hear? You can hear me okay then, right?
Yes. I can also hear the sirens, so I know you're in New York.
Yeah, that's right.
And yeah. And I'm going to give a disclaimer because I have two dogs that might go apeshit during this whole thing. So
I have one dog who might go apeshit during this whole thing, so we'll see who does best.
All right, I've got.
Yeah, don't worry about it anyway. We love dogs.
All right. I want to thank you. I've really enjoyed going back and listening to the music.
Oh, good.
What I want to do is to find out a little bit more about the new album. I kind of like to go back and find out about how you got into music in the first place. So I know you're Irish. You're born in Ireland.
Yes.
Wexford, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Beautiful. I've been looking up some photos. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. Yes, it's a seaside town. Well, it's a harbour town. Harbour town. It's not a seaside town. We're surrounded by sea. We're surrounded by beaches, but the town the town itself is really a harbour town.
Okay.
Mostly fishing boats.
Oh, okay. I'm looking right now at a photo of Ferns Castle.
Ferns Castle.
Yes.
Ferns, yes. Ferns Castle. My God. Okay.
I was looking up pictures of Wexford, and that's one of the first ones that popped up. So.
Yeah. Okay. I can't even remember what that looks like, but I know where Ferns is.
It's pretty. It's your basic castle.
Yeah, that's not one of the more spectacular ones.
No.
But Ferns was once the capital of Ireland.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's like this little tiny place, like a village that has a castle. But yeah, it was the capital of Ireland once. Which I don't really. I wasn't I wasn't alive.
No.
But, about a couple hundred years ago.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah. So that's what its distinction is.
Oh, that's pretty wild. See, I'm learning stuff already.
Yeah. The diocese, the Catholic Church was a major force in Ireland. It's not that much anymore. And the diocese that I'm from is called the Diocese of Ferns, even though Ferns is just this little village in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, wow, that's hilarious.
Yeah, and it's the seat of the bishop, the bishop of Ferns, is bishop of all, of a very large area.
Wow. So I'm outside of D.C., so I'm in the Arlington diocese, but I live probably an hour and 10 minutes away from Arlington. So it's a big archdiocese.
Yeah, these things don't make a lot of sense anymore, really.
So I read that you grew up with music in the house and that your mom was a musician herself and you had a music store in the family. What was the first music that really influenced you? What were you listening to as a kid growing up?
First of all, there were several stages because my mother was a musician and she even had her own band. And she was a songwriter. So, and I was the last born. I'm the youngest in my family.
Oh.
So everybody else had learned how to play the piano and done exams and all that stuff, and got tired of playing music and gave it up. And then I came around. By the time I came around, my mother didn't bother teaching me anything. She just said, if he wants to do it, let him do it, that kind of thing. And but I was singing very young, as a baby, I was singing songs.
Oh, wow.
So then, really that's that phase of my life, the phase before I got into rock music is an important phase too, because I was listening to a lot of church music,
Okay.
Bach and Mozart and Beethoven and Fauré and all these people
Right.
had a big influence on me during that period, and coupled with my mother's dance band music, which was kind of like some kind of a sort of a Bing Crosby kind of thing or something, I don't know, it's like leftovers from the Second World War kind of thing,
Yeah.
Whatever that was, I'll Be Seeing You and all those kind of songs. I don't know if you know them, but I don't really know them either,
Yeah. That was mom's music.
The White Cliffs of Dover,
Yeah.
and all these songs. And so that was influenced me as well as the church, as the church music,
Okay.
And then I was in all the choirs. And then there's another thing that happens when you're a child in Ireland is that you are also kind of required to sing Irish folk songs. As part, required is not the right word, but it's part of the curriculum in school.
Oh, wow.
That you learn. You learn Irish folk songs, Irish rebellion songs sometimes, and so that, and those are very melodious. It's very melodious music. The music that they have. In fact, one of the songs on my new album, Where It Should Be, it has the chorus of it is influenced by an old Irish folk song called The Foggy Dew, and I sang that in school. That's some, as you can see, it's very melodious.
Yeah.
It moves around a lot. It moves around a lot.
I love that song.
Everything will be where it should be. Like my dad walking out that hill to the hospital with his heart full of joie de vivre.
So, the melody, I would think was my strongest point for a long time, was the melodies. Because, as I said, I had all that music come into me, and I had no awareness much of the lyrics. I wasn't thinking of, but sometimes it was in Italian,
Right.
Sometimes it was in French, sometimes when it was in Irish. And, even though I was forced to learn Irish in school, I didn't care about it,
Yeah.
So you were constantly singing in other languages, hardly ever singing in English, So therefore, the thing I was influenced mostly by was the melody.
Okay.
So for a very long time, melody was my strongest suit. And then when I realized that lyrics were my weakest suit, I started to focus heavily on that. And one day they married together, the lyrics and the melody.
It all came together.
Yeah. And
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships or at work, not dealing well with the stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better, because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Try doing that in person. So join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself, because you are your greatest asset. And a special offer to Performance Anxiety listeners: you can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/performanceanxiety. That's betterhelp.com/performanceanxiety. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast.
And then I came on to your podcast.
Right. And thanks for coming on. So, and
Yeah.
what kind of music were you listening? Well, I guess the best way to ask this, I guess, would be, what kind of music shop was it that your mom was running? I mean, were you getting a lot of modern records, rocking?
Oh, yeah. Well, it was eclectic. It was everything.
Okay.
It was a time when radio was eclectic and everything was eclectic. There was none of this thing of, okay, we're doing only rap music. We're only going to do blues, or we're only going to do jazz or whatever.
Yeah.
That didn't exist. It was like radio was a mishmash. I would hear, I don't know, the Rolling Stones, Mother's Little Helper, right next to Bing Crosby singing something, on the radio. It's like, it was all, it was just absolutely chaotic like that.
Wow.
And so the record shop was like that too. We had every kind of record you could imagine. Once I turned like 15 or 14 or whatever, I guess 14, and I was really into bands like the Velvet Underground and the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and Traffic and all these different kinds of bands.
Yeah.
Then I started ordering them all the time for the shop. That didn't mean that we could sell them or anything,
right.
But we had to. And, I was left out full reign over that. And so this salesman would come around in his car, and he'd have all the records in the boot of his car, and with a hatchback. And he'd pull up, open the back, and he'd have a blanket over all of the vinyl to stop someone from robbing his car.
Man.
He would take that blanket off, and you could smell the vinyl. You could smell the records. It was just like an orgasm. It was an orgy.
Yeah.
It's like I mean, I was buying records just because I like the cover, and stuff,
Oh, yeah.
This is not good sort of salesman attitude for a small town, Wexford. But all of that had a big influence on me. So, no matter what was in that record shop, I listened to it because I was in there all day long, several times. I used to work in it. So I went crazy, so I was just listening to everything, everything. It didn't matter. So therefore, I'm eclectic as well.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. I like that.
Yeah.
When did you start performing out in public, out in front of people?
Very early, really, because I, first of all, I had this family I came from that was very musical, and my uncles and everyone, they were all musical, and so my mother would have parties. They would have parties in her house, and everybody had to sing. It was an Irish party, like where they went around. All right, we're starting with you, John. Go around left to right, or clockwise around the room.
Oh.
And everybody has to do something. And I don't care if you're any good or not. I don't care if you can sing or not.
Oh,
it's like you've got to do something. Everyone has to do something. I mean, you're literally shitting yourself sitting there waiting for your turn to come up. What am I going to do? I mean, at first I just couldn't handle it. I mean, and then after a while I learned a party piece, and I figured out what I was going to do. And, and then after a while I realized that they weren't very judgmental. They were very open to you making a,
Oh,
so that's the first time really, and, then I sang in the Tops of the Town, which was a thing that was held in the parish hall. There was a big event every year. Okay. And I sang Silent Night when I was about 12, and with a choir of about 50 people behind me.
Oh, wow.
And I think that was the moment. The next moment came out, my sister had me sing at her wedding, and I sang like Panis Angelicus and Ave Maria and these kind of things. And that completely blew my mind. I mean, I was just lost. I mean, and so I think that's where it began, and then as soon as I turned 14, I started singing at any kind of open mic situation. Playing the piano. Yeah. And of course, I would do things that you weren't supposed to do, like A Life in the Day by the Beatles. It's like, I read the news today, oh boy, and they're like, what the fuck is this? So, and I wasn't trying to be awkward either. I was trying to entertain them.
Were there a lot of places for you to play back at that point in Wexford?
Oh, yes. Yeah, but they had. You see, Ireland has that kind of musical tradition that, like once a week there would be an open. I forget what they called it. There'd be a guy sitting playing the guitar in a place where they have a microphone, and then they invite people up to sing. Okay. Sometimes you would ask. You'd give them your name, and they'd call you when your turn came.
Oh, wow.
So I was actually got to the point where you had to be brave enough to give them your name. And then again, you're sitting there shitting yourself.
What have I done?
Why did I do this? It's and then I joined a band. Of this older man. He was in his 40s. He was the same age as my mother, actually. And he had a band, and but was very hip. He was into like the charts and stuff. He was interested in what was the pop charts and all, and realized that he was too old really to appeal to young kids. So he put like 4 or 5 young fellas like me together and formed a band, a group. Yeah. I mean, it's a bit like a boy band in the year before we ever had one.
Oh, man.
Except there were no rules or regulations. We were allowed to do whatever we liked. And he owned the equipment. And he booked us.
Okay.
So that was my first, that's how it began, really.
Was that the Arrows?
The what?
Was that the Arrows, or was that before the Arrows?
No, the Arrows. You're well informed, Mark. No, this is before the Arrows. This is like we were called the Liars.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but with a twist. It was spelled Lyres because as in music.
The musical Liars.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
But that was our personal joke that went right over everybody's head. So, you know what?
Was your family supportive of you wanting to pursue music?
Oh, yeah, my mother loved it.
Oh.
She loved me doing that. My father just kept saying every now and then that it's a very hard life. But it didn't stop me or interfere with me. You know, he wanted me to do something like normal, of course. You know?
Yeah.
But my mother encouraged it.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so it was. Yes, it was.
So tell me a little bit about the Arrows. What was that then? It was
Right, this is another Irish phenomena. In Ireland, we had a scene called the show band scene. Now, It's not like not like an American show band, even though they were imitating an American show band, like in the kind of like Las Vegas sort of thing almost or something. I don't know. I really don't know. You have show bands in America? I don't.
When I hear show band, I think of like the Partridge Family.
Yeah. All right. Well, it wasn't unlike that. It was commercial. It was, but there were different kinds. There was like a country and western show bands, and there was pop show bands.
Okay.
That was pretty much the two categories, actually. I'll stop right there.
Yeah.
But the pop show bands could be quite experimental too.
Oh, really?
So it was kind of weird like that. Yeah, they were into doing things. They had the lineup usually was drums, bass, guitar, lead singer, and a brass section. And a keyboard player. Right? It was always a brass section of trumpet, saxophone, trombone. Let's say.
Okay.
So that really lent itself to soul music. So some of them really got involved with soul music. That.
Okay.
That was kind of the band I was in was sort of a cross between soul music and American harmony music, like the Beach Boys kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was the standard was high, but unfortunately, Ireland at the time was just like a country and western haven. Irish people, they're closer to Hoedown than Motown at that time.
Right.
So really, the band, the Arrows, was formed by a big management company, and the idea was straight away we were going to be big time. That was the idea.
Okay.
And we were pretty big right away. Like we were playing 6 nights a week.
Wow.
Every week. Yeah. But we were called a young show band because the first wave of show bands was over almost, and that was the one that was really successful. They made loads of money. They were very popular. But then, by the time the band I was in came around, social habits had changed a bit. There was a war in Northern Ireland, and Northern Ireland was a big haven for show bands. They loved Southern show bands in North were huge in Northern Ireland.
Oh wow,
huge! I mean, like the Beatles, like massive. I mean, the people in Northern Ireland loved the Southern Ireland accent, and people in the Southern Ireland accent love the Northern Ireland accent. We kind of loved each other, we loved the sound of each other. And then this stupid fucking war came around, and then, broke the whole half, So I stayed in that band for 3 years because it was very hard to get out of it, really, because I was getting paid a professional wage, I was earning more money than my father.
Wow.
It was real money, but it was really going nowhere. They weren't going to sing original music ever. They weren't going to ever do it. They knew I wrote songs and they liked them. And a couple of songs I've written really were, I know now still, could have been hits.
Oh, wow.
And I think I'm very lucky they weren't.
Oh, really?
Well, because I might
still be in a boy band. He'd be in a boy band to this day.
Yeah, it might be in a wedding band now.
So, when you decided to leave, is that when you got into playing with Turner and Kerwin, or it was the aftermath first, wasn't it?
Yeah, no. Okay, so I was going to mention Larry, but I wasn't sure you knew who he was. Yeah, while I was in Dublin in that band, I had to move to Dublin, by the way.
Okay.
I had to leave Wexford. When I was like 17, I had to move.
Oh man.
So I moved to Dublin, and when I moved to Dublin, Larry was already living there, studying accountancy, and he was living in a bedsitter. So I moved in with him. We shared the bedsitter, and that made it a lot more feasible for both of us, because I had to buy all this equipment. Equipment was so expensive in Ireland, like the amplifiers and guitars.
Well, yeah, I guess you had to import all that stuff, right?
Yeah, and they took a lot of tax on that. But you're right, importing it was a big part of the problem. Yeah. Like if you play the organ, it was probably made in Germany.
Right.
If you play the guitar, it was made in America.
Yeah.
So that was the problem, definitely. So Larry and I shared a bedsitter for the 3 years I was in this band. He had a daytime job, and I was like, I'd sleep until 2:00 in the middle of the day, go down back into the middle of the city, get in the van and off to a gig. That went on 6 days a week, five days sometimes. Yeah, Christmas time, all the time, just nonstop. And Larry and I were writing songs together during this whole period. We bought ourselves a recording machine, and we started writing songs for other people. We had a record label that was distributed by Polydor Records. And we were causing a bit of a stir in a kind of an underground way, I suppose, And then one day we just decided we had to get out of there. We had to go somewhere else because they just didn't want original music. And they had there was this attitude that original songs are written in England or written in America, not really written in Ireland.
Wow.
And they didn't think about it like people like Van Morrison. We all, like Larry and I, loved Van Morrison, and we were Astral Weeks was our favorite album.
Oh yeah.
We were listening to all the. It's funny, even the band, the Arrows, these Dublin guys who, grew up in Dublin, which is a much hipper place than Wexford, and, I had to introduce them to things like Abbey Road. They had, they never bought records or anything. They didn't really know these things. Weird. Yeah, so weird. Whereas Larry and I were totally in tune with all this stuff. So, I just gave them 2 weeks notice, and we got on the plane and went to New York.
Wow.
We had no idea why or how or what was going to happen when we got there.
Oh my God. Wow. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Hey guys, I want to talk to you about socks for a second. Why not? It's a music podcast. But I tried a pair of socks from Boldfoot and loved them. I've only worn them once because my kids have stolen them. So in my household, that's the best endorsement I can give. And I guess it's fitting because the design I chose was Jailbird. The design I chose was Jailbird. I might keep that in. The socks are 100% American made, and 5% of all proceeds go to veteran charities. It makes sense, seeing that Boldfoot is a family and veteran-owned company. They have a huge variety of styles. So check out boldfoot.com and buy some of the best socks you've ever slapped on your feet. And help veterans while you're at it. That's boldfoot.com. So you just...
In fact, as we were flying over JFK, Larry said to me, "Do you know where we're going to stay?" And I said, "No, I don't know where we're going to stay. I thought you knew where we're going to stay."
Oh my gosh.
That was the beginning of a relationship built on supposition. And of course, Larry was always a little bit one step ahead of me. He's a year older than me, I guess, but I think there's more than that to it. He's always a little bit ahead of me, about thinking of stuff like this. And he knew I had a phone number for a guy who had been the experimental lead singer with the Arrows for a short period, and he didn't pass the date. He was sent back to New York. And I had his phone number, and I thought I'd never call that phone, really, ever. But Larry knew I had the number. So, desperation, I called him, and he turned out to be such a great bloke, and he put us up for the night and introduced us to it. And his wife was an agent for kind of Irish folk singers.
Oh, wow.
Like yeah. So she got us gigs in these Irish bars singing Irish folk songs. We didn't really know any. Okay. But it was a start.
You make up your own.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what we do.
Who the hell's going to know the difference?
Yeah.
Or just play the Foggy Doo over and over again.
Yeah.
So I saw some things that I'm really curious about. That when you're in New York, you started playing with major thinkers, but I saw something. You're listed as a member of a couple things, and I wanted to find out if it's accurate or not, because it sounds really interesting. There's a compilation that came out in 1983 called "The Pulse of New York."
Yes.
And it's got you listed as a member of the Heretics and 7 and 3, which are both on that compilation.
Right.
So that was actually you then.
You really dug up stuff here, Mark.
I try.
The word of the law is Thelema. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. The word of sin is restriction. Oh man, refuse not.
Okay, that was an album that was put together by Neil Stocker. And Neil Stocker is actually one of the reasons we came to New York, because Neil Stocker heard a single. I forgot to say, Larry and I put out a single in Ireland on Polydor Records.
Is that Neck and Neck?
And Neck and Neck was the back of it.
Okay.
And the A-side was called "We Have No More Babies Left."
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah. And we were and the band was called Aftermath. We call ourselves Aftermath. I don't know. I think the record company gave us that name. And so we got a letter from Neil Stocker, who was a guy working in New York who imported records, and he wrote to say how much he loved it, and especially loved Neck and Neck, actually.
Oh, wow.
So when we came to New York, he was the first person we chased down, of course, and we became friends with him. And he's the one who put that album together, The Pulse of New York. And
okay.
On those two tracks that are on there. What's the name of the band?
The Heretics is the song is called Chapter 1, and it's 9 minutes long.
Yeah.
And then,
that's the track. What was going on there is Larry got into a guy called Aleister Crowley. Have you ever heard of Aleister Crowley?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right. So Larry got really into Aleister Crowley. And this could have been our downfall in a way, because then we started attracting these Aleister Crowley fans. And they were like a really some of them I loved some of them. I mean, some of them were very interesting people, but they were really unusual people, Orthodox. One guy was an Orthodox bishop, a Russian Orthodox bishop, so it was all this kind of, and all these people that were into science fiction, it was a very mixed crowd of people, and they didn't necessarily drink. So we were playing in places where really we were getting paid to play in, and the money that the place made was from the drink, you know. So we had this following that really didn't drink. So as I said, this was sort of our downfall in a way. And not only that, but they were sort of weirdos. And the general public then started to categorize us as demonic, you know.
Yeah.
Even CBGBs. When we played CBGBs, Soundman said we were demonic.
Whoa.
Imagine we were too demonic
for CBGBs. Oh my God.
It's hilarious, really. But so that track is one of the guys that was coming to see us all the time, had a lot of money, and he wanted us to write music to a thing called the Book of the Law, which was something that Aleister Crowley had come to him through his wife.
Right.
And she brought it.
Yes.
It was a little bit like the Ten Commandments, you know, something, you know. And they were, I don't know where they were. I mean, they were in Egypt or somewhere like that. And she spoke the words of the book, and he wrote them all down. And this thing called the Book of the Law. And it's like, basically, you know, do what thou wilt shall be the heart of the law. You know, that's the idea. So we wrote music to the book. And because I thought it was really fun, we could do whatever we liked. You know, we could write whatever music we wanted.
Wow.
And we could go into the studio with our favorite musicians and get pissed out of our mind. Smoke pot and just do whatever the fuck we like.
Right.
And it was paid for. We did it. So we did it. That's the way I did it.
Oh, man.
So that's what that is.
Okay. That makes a lot more sense. Now, there's a lot of bands on that. You're listed in two of them. Was it all you guys, or was it just a couple of you? Because you're shown as being part of the Heretics and 7 and 3, but there's also Tiny Tribe, DK Jones.
Tiny Tribe, yeah. I produced Tiny Tribe.
Okay.
But that was really the best thing. Although I did like the Book of the Law, but the Tiny Tribe were actually a really great little new wave band kind of here in town. A 3-piece from Queens, I think. And they asked me would I produce them, and they had the money to pay for the studio. We had a great studio in Connecticut where we were recording with Ron Bakioki all the time, a great engineer. Okay. And I said, sure. So, you know, I arranged the music, we worked it out and everything like that, and went there and recorded it. But, you know, we were trying to do something like Jam or something like that. You know, it was really kind of where my head was at the time, musically, this kind of thing. So we recorded it. And I mean, I think it came out great. I love the way that thing sounds. But, you know, they were like a fickle bunch of kids from, you know, Queens. And as soon as it was over, they gave it one of their mothers gave it to a lawyer, and the lawyer said, "Oh, it's too weird" or something like that. And that was the end of that. You know,
leave it to the lawyers.
Yeah,
they
right.
Screw everything up.
Yeah, because at that point in New York and in the world, you had two ways of going. You were either in the new wave camp, or you were in the kind of foreigner camp. You know that kind of like big, bombastic rock and roll kind of thing that was really dated and sort of dinosaur music was one camp, and the other camp was the Clash or whatever. You like that kind of music, and those two forms were as far away as it could possibly be from one another. So if you went to an A&R man who was into the Journey camp or whatever, Journey's not the right band I'm thinking about. Foreigner, whatever, that type of band, poppy, but metallic poppy kind of thing.
Harder stadium rock.
Yes, stadium rock, yes. If you went to that guy with Tiny Tribe, you could just leave right away. You haven't got a hope. He will detest it. Like he won't understand it for a second,
Right. And
the guy in the new wave camp would detest it if it was a foreigner type of thing that would be.
Yeah.
So they brought it to the wrong camp. And it wasn't my project, so I didn't care. I let it go, you know.
Yeah. Well, when did you start working with Philip Glass? How did you meet him?
Again, you know, it is, you know, when you're living downtown in Manhattan, you know, I live right downtown. I live in the village, the East Village.
Okay.
My girlfriend was a modern dancer. The Bells of Hell, where Larry and I played, was filled with, with people who were writing for the Village Voice and, people who were writing movies even that were big hits. Like, like people who were working with Animal House and movies like that, you know, people who worked on, they were all those kind of people were hanging out in the Bells of Hell, you know. Then I started writing music for modern dance because my girlfriend, because she said, do you have any music you can suggest to me? And I tried to think of what I could suggest, and I didn't have a lot of ideas. I played her a couple of instrumental things I knew and stuff, but didn't have any. But when I saw what she was trying to do, I thought, you know, I'll just write it for you, you know, because I don't know. I don't really know what. I'll write it. And I realized that they were really up against it. They had no money. They couldn't pay for music. They couldn't do anything. So, I had the ability, I had the equipment, I could record something. And I mean, it was like they couldn't believe it that I was giving them music for nothing to dance to, you know. And,
man.
And then when I got into that world, then I started to do quite well. I was asked to write for people like Twyla Tharp and all these people.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I didn't write for Twyla Tharp, but I was asked to. I didn't write for her, but I can't really tell you why I didn't. But it was because I was told it wouldn't be a pleasant experience. I met Philip Glass, and Philip, I had dinner in a friend's house. This is just purely because of the community, you know. And there was about 6 of us there. And of course I knew who he was because he was very well known in the dance world. This is really the music they wanted to dance to.
Okay.
Because it has all the time signature changes all the time, you know. That's what they want, you know. There are lots of time signature changes.
Okay.
And then it's hypnotic as well. So, you know, that was perfect for dance music.
Okay.
And so then, you know, I got to meet Philip, and then coincidentally, Philip started dating a woman who lived downstairs from me here in this building.
Wow.
I mean, that's just a coincidence. So I just ran into him in the hallway all the time. But I knew him now.
Okay.
So I would talk to him. And so one day I was talking to him, and he had just produced some band for BMG. I can't remember their name now. And I had heard it and thought it sounded good. And they got a lot of press out of it and everything. And the Major Thinkers had just been signed to Epic Records. So we were going to make an album. And so I said to him, you know, would you do a cello arrangement for one of the songs? And he said, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that's how I began working with him.
That's awesome. And had you already decided to start working on solo material at this point, or was it still for... No, I had not. No, I'm a kind of all-in-one. I'm a one project kind of person. Really. You know, it's like I was dedicated to my work with Larry and whatever we were doing. We were a partnership, strong partnership, and we knew that we had to be very focused. You know, we couldn't be doing all. We already were dealing with lots of musicians that were playing with us that were in every, you know, the bass player was in 6 bands and drummer was in 4 bands, you know, that was the way it was, you know, and that's the only way they weren't making a living. I was going to say making a living. They weren't making a living. So, but you know, whatever they were doing. Right.
And Larry and I had to be the centerpiece for the Major Thinkers. And we couldn't afford to be spread out. You know, I could write music for dancers, but, you know, we didn't, you know, no, our rock music kind of focus was just for each other's work together, you know, as a unit.
So how did the solo stuff come about then? had started working on.
Well, because we got dropped by Epic Records. We had the same manager as Suzanne. Sorry, not Suzanne Vega. Cyndi Lauper. Then management of Cyndi Lauper, and the manager started becoming her boyfriend. And when he became her boyfriend, and we were on the same label, he started really focusing all his attention on her, and it wasn't going well for her. Her first album, when it came out first, they wanted to move on. I was there, after 6 months or 4 months. Record companies don't last long. After about 3 or 4 months, if it's not a hit, they want to move on to the next album.
Yeah.
Something that's taken you 3 years to make, and they want to move on.
Yeah.
Because they're bored. They get bored. They just get fucking bored. And they were bored with Michael Jackson. He sold 27 million albums. We were on the same label as him. And they were more amused by us, which made me really suspicious too. I thought, come on, this guy just sold 27 million records and they are more amused by us. Come on.
Yeah.
So I was like, and that's what happened with Cyndi as well. So Cindy's album had been out for about 4 months, and I was in the hallway with the head of the record company and everything, and they said, it's over. The record's over. Wow. This is the record with Girl Just Want to Have Fun and all the hit songs.
Yeah, she's so unusual.
Time after time is on it. Yes, she's unusual. They said, it's over. It's not going to be a hit. And Cyndi started crying. She was so upset. And I think that's when they changed their minds, and they started, because I spoke to the head of the record company. I said, this is very sad. I mean, the record's just come out, you haven't given them much chance really, He said, don't worry, it'll be in the charts in 2 weeks' time. I swear.
Wow.
And it fucking was.
And it didn't leave for a long time.
Yeah. So there you go. There's an example how near that record came to failing.
Man.
And then we were dropped.
Wow.
So I'm not, so I actually took 2 or 3 songs off that album and re-recorded my solo album.
Oh,
because I knew they were really good songs and I wasn't going to let it go. And the head of the record label gave me permission to do that, because you do have to ask for permission. They had paid for the recording and then they owned the recording, and then you can't record a song for a certain amount of years again or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they were all right about it. But I really do think that is an important lesson for anybody who's anybody who's an artist. It doesn't matter whether you're young. And you're working on a record deal or whatever, just remember, that's how close it is to failure or success. It's just, it can be the tiniest twist,
For sure. So your debut comes out, and you're getting a lot of great press by best debut issued by an independent record company.
New Jersey white kid in his Sunday jeans, stuck to the corner of the street. A fat gypsy lady smacks the window pane. A farm dog gets out onto...
From then, you started putting out albums pretty regularly from, 87 until 2004. Yeah. And which, The Boy to Be With. And I love the back-to-back Sing and The Boy to Be With. Those, I love the way those work together. That's fantastic.
So this is the song for the year, and I'm the boy to be with. This is my favorite air. You'll find it hard to resist.
Oh yeah. Great, thank you.
And I see, was that you ended up getting your version of Dirty Old Town on The Wire.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
That's from a live album, actually. I did a live album in between there, because I started working with string quartets.
Yeah.
I just, one day it dawned on me that I'm sick of bands, guitars, drums, bass, playing with 10 other bands at the same time, squeezing you in for a rehearsal here and rehearsal there, 2 o'clock, like you're calling rehearsal studios. It's just, it's just so much work just trying to arrange the whole thing. And I thought, if I had a string, I was thinking about Eleanor Rigby by the Beatles.
Okay.
I was thinking it's perfectly possible to do for a string quartet to rock, and if I had a string quartet, I could write all the parts for them, and there wouldn't be much rehearsal involved. And if the violin player isn't available on one night, we can replace him with another violin player. They would have to have pickups, was the rule. And so I that was my brainwave anyway. And that was a lot of work. Sounds like a great idea and everything, but it was a lot of work, finding the musicians. And I had this manager at the time that was pretty interesting bloke, and he also managed Thelonious Monk.
Oh, wow.
And so when I said the idea to him, he was a big shot lawyer as well. He's a very unusual man, really. He said, "Oh, I'll find the string quartet for you." I said, "Will you?" So he did. He fucking did. It's like, I don't know where he got the people from or how he got them, but like, I had the string quartet. These really high quality musicians he got for me, and so they all came into this room one day, and I put the parts in front of them, and I counted them in. It was magic. It just sounded fucking great. So then I played a lot of gigs like that, a lot of gigs like that, and I built a whole new following around that. In Manhattan, and ultimately recorded a live album with that band, and we did Dirty Old Town live with the quartet and a drum machine.
Yeah,
because I did use drum machine with the string quartet as well. So yeah, and one day the phone rang, and it was HBO, and I think it was. I'm sure of this because there's no this. This is how stuff happens. I was playing, as I said, doing residencies here in Manhattan, string quartet, and I was doing it in places where you would never hear a string quartet. I mean, all right, there were, you see, high quality bars is the best way I would describe them.
Okay.
Run by people who were high quality themselves. They wanted quality, wanted something different. And I was doing every Sunday at 5:00 in this place called Puck Fair. That's, was pretty big. It held like 300 people, and it had a kind of an organ loft, and we were up there with the string quartet. String quartet is in the organ loft, and then it was a really long bar, really long. And I know that people like David Bowie used to come there just to hear us.
Oh, wow.
I was totally wireless. So I would jump off the stairs and onto the counter and run up and down the counter and back up. And it was like, so it was,
That's awesome.
Yeah. But I think that's like kind of in Soho, this place. Now you're dealing with a kind of a well-off kind of clientele as well, an influential clientele. That's why someone like David Bowie might pop in there. No, it was in Soho.
Right.
And I think one of them was a producer or something for HBO, because I don't know how else it's going to happen. And then I said to the guy, to the person who called me, I said, like, who else are you listening to doing Dirty Old Town? And he goes, she said, well, you're also checking out the Pogues version and the Dubliners version. Now, the Dubliners is the first version I ever heard, and it's superb.
Yeah.
And the Pogues do a great version too. And they're both pretty well known. I mean, the Pogues were really well known.
Oh, yeah.
And I was thinking, that's the end of that conversation. I mean, I'm not going to be using my version.
Right.
They picked my version.
Man.
So again, I'm thinking somebody up there, somebody in there who was influential had been coming to those Sunday gigs and thought that this is just so unique, and it was really unique, it really was. But that's how that happened.
You also had a bit of a gap between albums. So 2004, The Boy to Be With, and then Songs for a Very Small Orchestra didn't come out for another 8 years. Was there a reason there's such a gap?
All right. So what was the one you mentioned first? Boy to Be With.
The Boy to Be With. So that was 2004.
Yeah. Well, there was an EP called Action.
Okay.
A lot more depends upon them than you'd ever wonder. If they're not for us, they might be sad or just plain jealous. Who's your advisor? Who do you talk to when you feel you're stepping down? Will they say stop or send you even further? Who will you tell about our days? How will they act when you are plagued with doubts about our chances?
And again, this was a string quartet record. This was actually the culmination of the string quartet, because I really envisioned recording with the string quartet in a certain way that would, like, I wanted the drum machine string quartet kind of thing to sound like, as I said, like Eleanor Rigby or something like that, but maybe with or a cross between that and New Order or something. That's kind of like what I'm thinking. And I wanted to capture that. And of course, it doesn't come out like that at all. But that's what I was thinking. And on Action, if you check out Action, you'll hear the nearest I came to achieving that. And it shouldn't have been. It was an EP. It should never have happened, because I didn't really know that you can't do anything with an EP. Your following don't buy it because they don't know what it is. It's not an album. It's not the new album, so they're not sure what the hell it is. They're not going to pay the same price for it as an album, even though it's nearly as expensive as an album to make.
Yeah.
So it kind of falls between the cracks, and it fell between the cracks. It was single of the week in Ireland, and it got all the people. Anyone who heard it loved it, but. It wasn't, and it is really good, I believe. I think it's a great EP. But so that kind of like sort of got, and then you didn't mention 3 Minute World. But was 3 Minute World before
that? That was
okay.
That was before.
Before Boy to Be With.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. There was other stuff, and then there was a guy called Parthenon Huxley, who was a singer-songwriter, who was a fan of mine, who had been offered a production deal at Epic Records. They gave him seed money to pick an artist and make some demos with. We recorded 4 songs together with him and the string quartet again. And when the guy from the Epic Records heard it, he said, "Oh no, we're not looking for another singer-songwriter."
Oh.
But what do you think I am?
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, this is bullshit. But it's that kind of stuff happened. There was lots of stuff like that happening. I think there might have been another record in there. Are you sure? I can't. I'm not good at remembering this stuff.
All right. So what I'm showing here, let's see. We got It's Only a Long Way Across, The Sky and the Ground, Now Is Heaven, Mañana in Manhattan Live. Then there's Snakes and Ladders, Angelic Music, 3 Minute World, and The Boy to Be With. And that's all from 87 to 2004. And then the next full album shows as Songs for a Very Small Orchestra in 2012.
Right.
And so I do see an EP, Julie London.
Right. There you go. Another fucking mistake. Because again, that was another recording. As I said, I was doing these recording sessions, and instead of thinking I'll make an album, I was doing these recording sessions to experiment with different people to see what was going to come of it. And a lot of stuff got wasted, you know, like I recorded Judy London, which I think I love Judy London. But that was a session with four songs were recorded there as well. So the other 3 songs that were in that session, I don't think ever saw the light of day. And you know, I have them still recorded, and they're good. You know,
wow.
So I think that's what happened. I did this kind of experimental things where I would go and I record 4 songs here, 4 songs there, and then I ended up like none of that. When it came to songs for a very small orchestra, I had moved on to a new concept, and I think I cherry picked some of those tracks and put them on songs for a very small orchestra.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. I don't know what's on that album. Sounds very small.
Well, Philip Glass makes his triumphant return with Yogi with a Broken Heart.
He lay on the ground where he usually found heaven and breath from the far-off sea, but not anymore. With the wave of a text, he lay on the ground like a corpse. He's a yogi with a broken heart.
All right, Yogi with a Broken Heart, like is a song that I had demoed during that weird period.
Really? Okay.
Of songwriting, songs that were, I think, maybe exploring a new direction for me. I was thinking, you know, there comes a time where you wake up one day and you realize, I've got to sort of find a new mojo, you know, something, you know, when I pick up the guitar and I got a set of lyrics in front of me, I have to have something that is my mojo now, you know,
Right.
And so I feel like that was changing all the time during that period.
Okay.
So then I wasn't happy about that, you know. I wasn't happy that I couldn't find what it was. But then when I listened to Yogi with a Broken Heart, I thought, well, you know, this is a good song. And if you just stop this bullshit about looking for your mojo, you record that fucking song, you know. It's like, so that's what I did. And, you know, little things put you off, you know, like you're listening to songs, when you write songs, I always listen to my songs with a friend. And, you know, I think I wore him out, you know, I wore myself out and I wore him listening to new songs over and over, like not the same songs, but bringing him, every week I would meet him and I would bring him a new song that I recorded at home and all the time. And then after a while, you know, he started to, you know, a couple of times he said he didn't like a song that turned out later to be a really good song, like Yogi with a Broken Heart, for instance. He said he didn't like it.
Oh, wow.
And that's how volatile I was. Or, you know, I just vulnerable. Like I just said, I thought, yeah, maybe he's right about that. So I pushed it to one side and left it there for like, I don't know, maybe 4 years or something.
Wow.
I sat there. And then one day I happened across the cassette with the demo of it. And it was like listening to somebody else. You know,
Wow.
I was so objective, you know, when I put it on, I was like, what? What the fuck's wrong with you? So then I recorded it. And when I played it to that same friend, he said, I'm really glad that we recognized that was a good song.
Oh, God.
I didn't remind him.
Yeah. No kidding.
Because it's not his fault. It's just, you know, it was too much exposure, too much pressure, you know.
So, and you
have to make up your own mind.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. And you had Philip Glass play on that one as well. So were you in touch with him the whole time?
Well, that's the thing is that now how did that come about? I can't remember now exactly. It's a piano song. So I thought, yeah, you know, what if Philip was to play keyboard with me? Because everything he'd done with me before that was write string arrangements, and he'd never actually played on any of my recordings before. He didn't play.
Okay.
he had written string arrangements and stuff, but he had never actually played.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So I thought, this would be good to have him do that. So I called him up and I said, "Would you be interested in doing that?" And he said, "Yeah." So we got together and he started playing the keyboard with me and taking little notes on what it was. And I thought, this is really interesting. You have Philip Glass actually kind of improvising and writing a part for himself to play with me. And he never does that. He never really does that.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then he had like a party. It was a party in Philip's house. It wasn't Philip's party because Philip doesn't like to party at all. But someone else had a party in his house. He got sucked into this one. I don't know how he got. Oh, I know. He had a night at the City Winery where he had 4 guests and he presented them. And he asked me to be one of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and one of them was his son, actually, Zachary. And I think maybe that was part of his plan, was to give Zachary a chance. Zach had was writing songs. And then he had Suzanne Vega and Patti Smith. So the 4 of us. And so then Philip had to play with me, as that night.
Okay.
So we worked on a couple of songs. We worked on the song from my first album, How It's Shone, a song where I played the piano, and he'd written string arrangements. For live at that evening, he played the piano, and I played the string parts on the keyboard with a cellist playing live.
Oh,
and,
nice.
So it was really nice. And that's actually on YouTube, that recording. Of us playing live at the City Winery. It's a nice recording. So after that, we struck up kind of a companionship again, and that was when I said, "How about playing keyboard?" And then that crazy party was on in his house. And when the party was on, it was all these famous actors and actresses. Tony Soprano, all those people were there. I don't forget what's his real name. Oh,
James Gandolfini.
Yeah, all those people were there, and
Wow.
And Philip and I had to perform a song. So how we got roped into it, I don't know. But Philip performed the instrumental, and then we sang "You're with a Broken Heart." I sang "You're with a Broken Heart" and did it before. And so after that, I thought, that's it. Let's go record. And we went out to one of his keyboard players, Nicky Rossi, as a studio, and we videotaped the recording of he and I playing it together. And then I overdubbed the drums and strings on top of it. It's
a gorgeous song. I love it. But
funny thing, we didn't have any click track or anything. So
oh, really?
I had the drums. When we were overdubbing stuff on, it all had to be done organically. Oh, everybody had to just play with it. Yeah.
Oh, man.
So yeah. And then, it was on video, so, that's something I have never had before, where someone actually videotaped the recording of the song, and that's also on YouTube.
So you had a couple albums after that, like Love Can't Always Be Articulate, which I like because that statement kind of conforms to this podcast, I think.
Yeah.
But I love your version of T-Rex's Life's a Gas, and I love Tantum Ergo.
Tantum ergo sacramentum venire mortianui et anticum documentum novo cedat ritui prestet fide supplum.
You've got a new album coming out did you know Jerry Leonard before you started working on this album? How did you guys meet up with him?
It's just really weird. I mean, I had met Jerry during that period back then when I was playing with the string quartet. Mm-hmm. Jerry was my sound man. He mixed my sound.
Oh, okay.
And because he was working for this PA company that I knew the guy who owned the PA. And Jerry had just come from Ireland, and he couldn't get any work as a guitar player. And I didn't even know he played guitar. And so it's like, in fact, I would love to have had him. I was looking for a guitar player.
Oh, man.
He was mixing my sound, and I got to know him then, and we got along well. And and then I didn't see him for a very long time. And then one day, Cal Moore, who owned the sound system, said, have you seen this footage of David Bowie playing live recently? Jerry's playing guitar with him now.
Man,
I said, okay. So I looked at it. There was Jerry playing, guitar with David Bowie. I mean, and he was doing all the fucking really great parts, playing them. He was the man,
Man.
I just couldn't believe it. He was Mick Ronson,
Yeah.
And I thought, Jesus, that's amazing. So the next time I saw him was literally about 3 years ago, just before the pandemic. We were doing a T-Rex memorial concert. These guys were running this concert. I think Mark Bolan was dead 30 years or something like that.
Wow.
And I was asked to sing a song, and everybody, all kinds of people were on the bill. And Suzanne Vega was on the bill, and Jerry now plays with Suzanne Vega. So he was backstage, and I know Suzanne very well. Back then, Suzanne brought me on Glastonbury and
wow,
and all kinds of things. I know she used to come to see me play all the time, and
awesome.
So yeah, it was really awesome because she was huge. I mean, Luca was a massive hit, so people were kind of fascinated that she was standing in the front row. I mean, like my. I think that the reviewers mentioned that more than they mentioned me.
Oh, man.
So I said to Jerry that night at the T-Rex concert, would you like to work with me in the studio? I'd love to work with you, He said, sure, yeah. I said, okay then. And then I left thinking well, how am I going to pull it off? I mean, I make my records myself. There's no budget really. There's just fundraising from fans and, and it's, it's like I get, enough money to live for a few months, and that's how I do it. And then I got this miraculous contact from Dick Kinnett from Story Sound Records, and he said, I want to talk to you. And I was in Ireland at the time. I said, I'll be back in January. He said, I have a label. And I was thinking, I knew Dick from the 80s. I knew him because he used to compose for modern dancers too.
Okay.
And I always liked him. And I liked his music too. And I thought, well, when he said he had a label, I thought, yeah, you got a label. You got a label. John has a label. Everybody's got a label. Who gives a shit? So it's like, but I'm going to come up to see. I didn't say that, but I said I'm going to go see him just because I liked him. So I went to see him, and he said, "I don't know what I could do for you, but I know that I can give you, a few, 30 or 40 grand to make a recording, and I can, give you the money for videos, and I can hire a publicist and
wow.
In Ireland, and a publicist in England, a publicist in America, and I have international distribution." And I'm sitting there thinking, this is good.
Yeah,
I like this. This is a little bit better.
It's a lot better than my label.
Yeah. So I said to Dick, well, I have this idea. This guy, Jerry Leonard, I'm thinking about. And he said, Jerry Leonard? I love Jerry Leonard. He said, how do you know Jerry Leonard? Well, he plays with Rufus Wainwright. I said, oh, does he?
Yeah.
He said, yeah, he's his musical director. And, Loudon Wainwright is on Story Sound Records. And Dick is all embroiled in that whole Wainwright family.
Oh, wow.
So that's how I guess he heard Jerry playing with Loudon or with Rufus. And so that was the beginning of, and then that was it, really. We were in the studio, I'd say, about 6 weeks later recording.
So your approach to this album was completely different then.
This was a very different process because, first of all, I wasn't the only one who had the ideas, because I wanted Jerry to co-produce with me. Mm-hmm. And I wanted him to have a major say in the recording. I wanted the guitar to have a major part in the recording because I had never done that before, really, where the guitar was a big focal point.
Yeah.
And I've been doing so many keyboard albums and doing everything myself. I was sick of myself. I wanted someone else to do something. Yeah,
it was that time, right? Like when you got rid of everything, you decided to do string quartets. Now it was the same thing.
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. This is the new. What can you do next? So Jerry turned out to be a great person to work with, him because, like, first of all, he's opinionated and has lots of ideas. And it was it wasn't all smooth sailing. We had disagreements, but it was good disagreement. It was disagreement because we were trying to make it better.
Right.
We weren't trying to fuck with each other's heads or anything like that.
Right.
And so we started. I would make demonstrations of the songs on my phone, just no overdubbing or anything, just straight up version of it, and send it to Jerry. Jerry would listen to that. Then we'd go into the studio and we would rehearse it, 3 songs at a time. And he'd add the guitar parts as we were rehearsing it. We'd cut and paste the songs, arrange them differently, try different with them or whatever. And Jerry suggested this rhythm section, Tony Shanahan on bass and Yuval Lyon on drums. Tony plays with Patti Smith, and Yuval Lyon plays with David Byrne. And
that's awesome.
And I said, yeah, they sound good, why not? And they were great. I loved working with them. And I'm still working with them. Tony and I are like brothers now, and he's totally, in fact, I'm doing a gig in New Jersey soon in the Hoboken Street Fair when I have Tony playing bass, and what's his name, JD Doherty from Patti Smith's band playing drums.
Oh, wow.
Because Yuval can't do the gig, so now I've got Patti Smith's rhythm section.
Oh my God.
So it's fascinating.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know where it's going, but it's interesting.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So we recorded the album, and during the pandemic, I have to say, which is really an important part of this, because I don't think those people would have been available in normal times.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah, even the studio might not have been available. It's a very high quality studio. It might have been too expensive.
Yeah.
In normal times.
Oh, wow. Yeah. What is the meaning of Terrible Good, the album title? How did you come up with that?
It's actually a common phrase in Ireland. Just for us, terrible good now. We heard you last night and you were terrible good. So it says all the time. I don't understand really. I'm not sure why, but a very long time ago there was a book called Terrible Beauty, and that book was about Ireland and its troubles, and referring to Ireland as the Terrible Beauty, because it was, with the English occupation and everything, Ireland was a very torn, sad place, really sad place. It was not unlike what's happening in Ukraine right now, except for, not as destructive as that, because we didn't even have an army.
Right.
And it was obviously a long time ago, so they didn't have the same kind of weaponry. But, pretty much the same thing, where the English took Ireland and broke it. That was the plan. That's what they did. So Terrible Beauty was about that. Can't remember. There's a really famous writer who wrote that. And someone's going to be listening to this and they're going to think that I'm so thick that I can't remember who wrote it. But,
I'll look it up real quick.
Can you Google who wrote that? Terrible Beauty.
Peter King, or let's see. There's a few of them actually. There's a book about Ty Cobb called A Terrible Beauty. I don't think that's the one.
No, this would have to be very old.
Let's see.
Someone stole the title, those other things. But
All right, let me see here.
It would be from the 1919, we're talking about 1910 or something like that, like 1920.
It's hard to narrow this one down. Let's see.
Someone very famous. Anyway, we'll find it. But that's typical of the Irish thing, of the duality of Irish conversation. And when I grew up in Ireland, if something was what's the real word? Deadly. If something was deadly, it was great.
Okay.
So and then you have in Wicked. It was Wicked means really good also.
Yeah, that one's big in Boston too.
yeah, and American, and in the African American community, bad means good. So it's the twisting of language, and the Irish, because English was their second language, they constantly twisted it like that.
I think they did it on purpose.
I think so, and sometimes it was just because they were picking it up wrong, and then they liked picking it up wrong, and they realized that they were inventing something, which is true. That's how language is invented.
Yeah. You go back and forth between Ireland and New York a lot. How often are you traveling between the two?
Well, I'm really living in Ireland now.
Okay.
I come to New York, but I have a whole world in New York, like friends and fans and life and gigs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I'd say that I'm spending several months in New York and the rest of the time in Ireland. Okay.
When you're playing, are the audiences different between New York and Ireland?
They're not as different as you would think. They have different songs that they like.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know if I'm not sure how that came about, but even, if that's me picking songs that I think they're going to like, or, what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so hard to know.
Trying to curate a set list for each audience.
I write it's not so, yes. Well, I curate a set list for each situation.
Okay.
Is a better way of putting it.
Okay.
So, like, for instance, I'm doing this Hoboken Street Fair, which is apparently a great event, but at the same time, this is confusing the shit out of me, because I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm up against.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's even interesting, isn't it? Just wait a second. Well, you're going to have to get up there and be strong and just do what you do.
Yeah.
And if they don't like it, you're going to have to make them like it. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I've been enjoying the album a lot. So my favorite, I think, is Steven, because I love the guitar, and I love the blasts of feedback. I love the ending. That's my favorite track on the album.
And all I have to love you before I let you go. Then I love that dark gray clouds. Then I see the setting sun with you and no darkness. Stephen's preparing to leave.
Okay, great.
But I also like Rocket Man. That and Steven both have a Bowie feel to them, to me.
They have a what feel?
A David Bowie feel.
A Bowie feel. Yes, I can see that. Absolutely. Yes, I can see that.
My mother and I never went out unless the sky was cloudy or the sun was blotted out to escape the pain. She only went out when it rained. My father was a rocket man. He loved the world beyond the world, the sky beyond.
I'll tell you something about those two songs. It's fascinating. First of all, Stephen was originally called Stephen's Preparing to Leave. And it is on Angelic Language, that album that you mentioned from way back then.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's that old.
Wow.
It's that old. And if you listen to that version of it, because it's only a demo, that album was really an album of demos. You can hear that it's almost like a folk song, but it has some experimental stuff going on as well. And that. But I don't think David Bowie would come to mind if you listen to that version. But I don't know who would come to mind either. But, and then Rocket Man is the only song on the album that I didn't write. I didn't write Rocket Man.
Really?
No, this is a really interesting story behind Rocket Man. Yeah, I know, because I've had that song from the 70s, and it was given to me by somebody, and because they thought Larry and I should do it, and I just said we didn't want to do it, so I just kept it. I just kept it here somewhere. I really liked this song. It was recorded by a group called Pearls Before Swine.
I remember them. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And if you look, I'm finding out all this history now. I mean, because when I decided to record it, I thought, I should find out more about this fucking song.
Right.
And when I found out it was written by Tom Rapp. Tom Rapp was the lead singer in Pearls Before Swine. And he recorded it with them. And I've heard their version, and it's really strange. And then he recorded it again. And the version I had heard was his version. Not the Pearls Before Swine, and I liked it, but I kept it there. I just kept it to once, and I always thought one day, and I made a demo of it that sounded really good. I thought one day it'll fit. I don't know where, maybe it'll never fit. I don't know. And my friend who I played songs to loved it, and so I kept doing it. But when Jerry and I made the album, I think, he said to me, what kind of an album do you have in mind? I said, no, I don't know. I want it to be like a Bowie album. I don't know, something like that, like a really good Bowie album.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty wide open field.
Yeah.
That could be anything. Yeah. And he said, which one? Which Bowie? I said,
yeah.
That's so hard to say, but, I suppose the Mick Ronson one. At least that's a good few different ones. I loved all of it,
Yeah.
I didn't really, but so then I think we superimposed. So I gave him the first song I played to Jerry was Rocket Man. That demo, I had that demo. That was a really good demo, and I think I was nervous about playing him my own songs. And this is my way of getting around it or something.
Okay.
So I played him this, and he loved it. And he said, it sounds like one of your songs. He couldn't believe I didn't write it,
Wow.
And he couldn't believe how old it was. And I said, and it was written before Elton John's Rocket Man.
Wow.
It says, if you look up the Wikipedia for that song, and it says there that the guy who wrote the lyrics for Elton John's songs, Bernie Taupin, was influenced by this Rocket Man.
Wow.
When he wrote that Rocket Man.
Oh my
God.
That's crazy.
It's really wild. I mean, what a writer Tom Rapp was to write a song so far ahead of its time. I mean, in my opinion, that's what I think anyway. It's a timeless song, it's like but anyway, so I think that because of that, then Jerry and I made those songs at David Bowie sounding songs.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Which, I totally was up for,
Oh, God, yeah. I also really enjoyed More, because it sounds like you're having a blast singing that one.
There must be more that we can't feel than adequate. What about Sop? What's so naff about Sop? Must everything be sweet and white? What about the stars in the back of the night? There's a whole lake of stuff losing ground. We're starting to drown in toffee. What about big bold crazy?
Yeah, yes.
I think I hear a couple chuckles in the lyrics there.
Yeah. Well, that's a very popular live song. So I've been doing that one live for a little while as well, and I just people sing the chorus with me when I do it.
Oh, nice.
We recorded, by the way, that Joe's Pub performance we just did to launch the album and we have video of the whole thing. And it's high fidelity. So we'll be we're working on putting it up there in different sections and stuff.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah. So that will be there for people to hear. More is anyhow. The reason why I say that is the audience really sings in the performance.
Oh, cool. That and Set a Few Things Up both sound like super fun tracks.
Yeah. Set a Few Things Up really takes off when you play it live. It's just like, infectious.
Oh man, I'd love to see you. Hopefully, I get a chance to either get up to New York or I don't know, maybe one day you can come down to DC and I can catch a show.
Where are you, by the way, Mark?
I'm in Winchester, Virginia, so I'm about 75 miles due west of DC.
Wow.
So home of Patsy Cline.
Well, Patsy Cline was from where you are?
Yeah, she's from Winchester.
Oh, I love Patsy Cline.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, she's buried right down the road.
Well, I know it's kind of weird and it doesn't make any sense, but this is what happens to people, I guess. First of all, but on Love Never Fails, the song Love Never Fails,
mm-hmm.
I kept thinking, I want to sing this like Patsy Cline.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's it.
That's crazy coincidental.
Where's eternity's ground? God in the box and accepts what is found. Love never fails. Love never fails.
I just kept going through my head. If I could just be as genuine as Patsy Cline when I sing this song.
Wow.
I loved, she was in the record shop, I needn't tell you, and I loved, it's just magic. So she's from there, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, she used to, one of her first job was working at the drugstore. It still exists. It's still they haven't torn the building down or anything, but yeah, she's all over the place here. They got all kinds of stuff for her.
She's magic. That whole thing had a big influence on me. That Americana thing, where the Roy Orbison thing, Patsy Cline. I think of Patsy Cline and Roy Orbison as similar in some very strange way.
Oh, they had such clear voices. Their voices are like listening to a bell ring out or something. There's just something, a quality to their voice. Yeah,
and also then the way they use strings. So that it wasn't country and western, I mean, it's not country and western,
right?
It's maybe that's what I think anyway. It's something else, she's like a diva, I guess.
Yeah, I love her, and she's all over the place here. So if you ever get a chance, come to Winchester. I'll show you around.
Well, you've just given me an education. I thought I assumed she was from Nashville or somewhere.
No, she's.
Well, I thought Roy Orbison was from Nashville too. When he was.
No,
she's from some funny place as well.
Oh.
Someone pointed out recently that's like that like Woody Holly is from the same place as Roy Orbison. I was told.
Lubbock, Texas.
Yes, Texas, somewhere in Texas.
Yeah, I know. Let's see. I know Buddy Holly was from Lubbock, I believe, and then see.
It's the same area. What's the name you just said?
Buddy Holly is from Lubbock, and Roy Orbison's from Vernon, Texas, which is probably pretty close to each other.
Yeah, that area, though, it's got a kind of a German name. Is a German name on the area or something? That's why, okay. But they're from a similar place.
Yeah.
Very similar. And, I'm sure it's the same, I suppose, maybe for you, it's the same when you think of English music. But when you're in a little shop in a little town in the southeast of Ireland and you're listening to people from Texas and Nashville or New Jersey or anywhere, Long Island, these places are like, you can't just get your head around. I mean, the imagery you have, or California, is like, I mean, you just think that this is like someplace you will never, ever get to in your entire life. It's this magical place. where this music comes from. That's like, I don't know. Maybe.
That's what I think about when I think of food. When I think of Europe. I think of all these amazing places that they make this incredible food, and I'm never going to get there. I don't know. I base a lot of my life around food. So, food.
You're not fat for a guy who loves food.
No, I'm all right. There we go.
Oh, that's
not too bad.
No, it's not bad.
I've cut back on the beer.
I love food as well. It's the beer that actually does the fat.
Yeah, that and my bourbon. I've had to cut back on that a little bit.
Oh yeah,
lose a little bit of weight.
Yeah, but I love food as well. I don't know any people who don't like food. That's very suspicious. That's like saying you don't like music.
Yeah, I don't trust those people.
Yeah.
Well, Pierce, where can people find the album? How can they buy it? And how can they follow you to find out where you're playing, whether it's Ireland or New York or New Jersey?
Well, first of all, my website is just called www.pierceturner.com.
Simple.
It's available really on everywhere. Amazon, it has international distribution. Any of the major, you should be able to go online and buy the album easily. You can definitely stream it easily. And if you're, as far as gigs are concerned, I'm sorry, I'm not interested in touring anymore. I can't be bothered.
Right.
If someone gives me a really good gig and they want me to come somewhere, I'll do it, but it has to be a really good gig. So really you have to catch me either in the New York area or in Ireland or possibly in England.
All right.
And then, as I said, I'm doing the Hoboken Street Fair on May 1st. And I'm playing here in the East Village in a place called Theatre 80 on May 14th.
Okay.
After that rhythm section, I've got, and as I said, I've got Patti Smith's rhythm section, and the guitarist played with Ian Hunter from Up the Hoople. It's like, Jerry's not available for that gig, and Yuval's not available, so I have these guys. So it's going to be, which I'm so grateful for, these people who helping me out like this. I don't know what other question you asked me really, but
is there any social media presence?
Yeah, just Google my name. It's all over. Wikipedia and everything, But if you just Google my name, you'll find out everything you want to know.
Oh, excellent. Well, this has been a blast. I've had so much fun speaking with you. It's so many great stories, and I really thank you for spending so much time with me.
It was lovely, Mark. Lovely talking to you, and it's like lovely hanging out with somebody, in another part of the world or another part of America. Because I don't get out there, and I used to tour. I toured America a lot, and I played in colleges when I came here first, and I met a lot of people like you, and I miss meeting people like you,
I appreciate that.
It's great to talk to you.
So let's leave now and don't worry. I'll go out in the morning and set a few things up. Sometimes I don't get out of my car, and sometimes I drive too far. Sometimes I stare at the silent trees and think of sweet white things, and think of